Tonight, the cross-border consequences of Donald Trump's vow to impose hefty tariffs. Getting ready for a trade fight.
This is a relationship that we know takes a certain amount of working on, and that's what we'll do.
What we really need is an action plan.
And who will ultimately pay the price?
We might go to business.
A U.S. brokered Israel-Hezbollah ceasefire deal.
Fighting across the Lebanese-Israeli border will end.
What it means for the Middle East. One of Canada's most notorious serial killers denied parole. Again, the emotional statements from his victims' families.
Say, Drake, I hear you like I'm young.
Always rapping like you about to get the slaves free.
A new legal battle playing out between two of rap music's biggest stars.
He's saying they're favoring this artist versus me.
Plus, the mindful choice for Word of the Year.
See how I do my makeup for work? Very demure.
What's behind the trending term?
Demure.
And its meteoric rise.
See how I'm reading this book? Very demure.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. America's largest trading partners are bracing tonight for the impact of Donald Trump's tariff hike on the first day he takes office, now just 55 days away. Canada and Mexico making the case that the move would not only devastate their own economies, but also be a major blow for the U.S., especially American shoppers who rely on farm imports from Canada and Mexico, the top two suppliers, shoppers who could end up paying more for groceries. And that's because tariffs are a tax on products other countries make and send to the U.S. But those countries don't pay the tax directly. It gets passed down to American companies and often American consumers. We'll have more on the economic impact here in just a moment, but we begin with CTV's Mike Legator on the political reaction and a reality check.
The bottom line is it would mean a recession for our province.
Politicians of every stripe and from every province warned about the potential impacts of 25% tariffs from the United States. President-elect Donald Trump is threatening the measure as he claims thousands of people are pouring into the U.S. from Canada and Mexico, bringing crime and drugs.
I found his comments unfair. I found them insulting. It's like a family member stabbing you right in the heart.
Senior government sources tell CTV News in a call last night, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau told Trump our shared border isn't the problem.
This is something that we can do, laying out the facts, moving forward in constructive ways.
According to the Americans' own numbers, in the last year, encounters at the Canada-U.S. border have accounted for just 1.5% of the total when you include the Mexican border. More than 21,000 pounds of fentanyl have been seized at the southern border, while the amount stopped on its way from Canada to the U.S. was just 43 pounds.
We think we have a reassuring and constructive story to tell, and our job will be to make sure the Americans understand the work that's being done at the border.
In the first Trump presidency, Canada dealt with U.S. tariffs on our steel and aluminum. That experience and the renegotiated NAFTA is why some are calling for another Team Canada approach. The Prime Minister is holding a virtual meeting tomorrow with premiers, but getting everyone on the same page could be a challenge.
I don't think that we can be naive enough to think that we can just argue, well, we're not as bad as Mexico, therefore give us an exemption. That's not going to fly.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is willing to put partisanship aside, but with conditions that put Canada first.
Trudeau's got to axe the carbon tax. He's got to lift the production cap on Canadian energy. He's got to rebuild our military and secure our borders.
The Canadian government did slap counter tariffs on the U.S. last time, but it's unclear if they will again. Now, Mexico's president has said she will retaliate if Trump follows through on his threat. Omar?
All right, Mike, thank you. Donald Trump's tariff announcement had an immediate impact on the Canadian dollar. The loonie plunged by nearly a full cent to a 4.5-year low in midday trading, before closing at 71.01 cents to the U.S. dollar. That's more than a half-cent drop from Monday. The tariff threat is a further drag on the loonie, which has been moving lower against its American counterpart since September. Small businesses here in Canada are also preparing for the bruising impact of potential tariffs. CTV's Heather Wright with what's at stake.
Over $3.5 billion in trade flows across the U.S.-Canada border every single day, from big items like cars and trucks to smaller things like mouthpieces for musical instruments.
The effect on this tariff, if it happens as advertised, will be catastrophic.
David Harrison sells roughly 2,000 of his patented brass mouthpieces a year, and 75% of his customers are in the United States.
For us, it'll mean that our customers won't be able to afford our mouthpieces, or will choose not to purchase them. And if we lose a substantial portion of our U.S. market, that would be enough that we might go to business.
Businesses on both sides of the border are warning of the devastating consequences these tariffs might have to both companies and workers.
25% is a massive number.
Nicholas Mulrooney is the CEO of Bond Bakery Brands, which owns several commercial bakeries that export products south of the border.
We've had to work with our customers in the past with commodity spikes, inflation. This is just the next bump in the road.
Mulrooney is also the son of former Prime Minister Brian Mulrooney, one of the architects of the North American Free Trade Agreement. He is urging the federal government to make this issue a priority and negotiate closely with the incoming administration.
Seeing the intimate relationships that he's had with President Reagan, President Bush, these are very impactful negotiations that go on. So I just see yesterday's news as a tactic to get things on the table and up for discussion.
So while there is some hope, this is just a jumping off point. As one person put it today, hope is not a strategy. So many businesses now preparing for a worst case scenario. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
Developing news tonight from Nova Scotia, where for the second time in a row, Tim Houston's progressive Conservatives have won a majority government.
Your kindness means an incredible amount to me, to my entire family, and I look forward to continuing to serve you for 4 more years.
CTV's Paul Hollingsworth is at Houston's headquarters in Glasgow. And Paul, a blue wave has swept across the province tonight, but this time with a new opposition.
Absolutely, Omar, and lots of excitement here in New Glasgow for Tim Houston, the Nova Scotia Progressive Conservative Premier, re-elected with another commanding majority. Now, heading into this election campaign, he skipped the fixed election date, called a snap election. There was some speculation that maybe the voters in Nova Scotia would not be happy about this. Well, they certainly did not punish him in any way. He increases his majority. He pulls off an even more commanding victory than he did back in 2021. So he returns with his second consecutive majority, continues to be the Premier of Nova Scotia. That's the top headline, but what's happening in second and third place is also an interesting story, Omar. Just 4 years ago, the Liberals were in power, having 2 consecutive back-to-back majority wins as the governing party. Now, within 4 years, they are decimated, falling to third place in the standings of the Nova Scotia legislature, and the NDP, after sitting in the political wilderness, if you will, for the past 11 years, they climbed the political ladder considerably, and they are now the official opposition. Tim Houston, re-elected with a commanding majority here in Nova Scotia. The NDP, they are a party in bounce-back mode, and they move into the official opposition status. Omar.
All right, Paul, thank you. Canada is welcoming a ceasefire deal that has just gone into effect tonight between Israel and Hezbollah. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbin with details of the deal.
Before the ceasefire, a massive Israeli assault on the southern suburbs of Beirut. Hezbollah, too, has launched hundreds of rockets into Israel. Finally, now an end to the nearly 14 months of brutal war between Israel and the Iranian-backed militants Hezbollah in Lebanon. All sides accepting the U.S.-France brokered deal. And for outgoing President Joe Biden, this is a big foreign policy win.
The fighting across the Lebanese-Israeli border will end. Will end. This is designed to be a permanent cessation of hostilities.
The deal calls for a 60-day end to the fighting. As Israeli forces withdraw, the Lebanese army will move in, Hezbollah pulling back from the border, and Israel would return to their side, creating a sort of buffer zone. Most importantly, though, for Israel, if Hezbollah breaks the truce, it will retaliate.
If Hezbollah tries to attack us, If it arms itself, if it rebuilds infrastructure next to the borders, we will attack them.
For thousands of people displaced by the fighting in both Lebanon and Israel, it's bittersweet. Their homes and communities have been destroyed, and there's fear.
Quite frankly, it's a concern that it won't even last 60 days. With Hezbollah, they tend to be the first to break the ceasefire, and usually always, actually, without warning.
Still, this deal has Washington believing it could push Hamas back to the negotiating table, bring the hostages home, and stop the suffering in Gaza.
Peace is possible. As long as that is the case, I will not for a single moment stop working to achieve it.
With just 2 months left in office, the president not giving up hope. Joy Malbin, CTV News, Washington.
Notorious killer and rapist Paul Bernardo was denied parole today for a third time after an emotional plea by the families of his victims to the parole board to keep him locked up. CTV's Quebec Bureau Chief Geneviève Beauchemin reports.
From behind the walls of this medium security prison, one of Canada's most notorious killers was told no to his request for parole or leave of any kind. The board concluded Paul Bernardo had made some strides during incarceration, but denied his release on several grounds, including the extreme violent nature of his crimes. Bernardo said he worked as a groundskeeper in prison, that he wanted to stay in Quebec if released, and would soon be taking French lessons. He also said it was a good thing he was caught for society. And he said he became sadistic because it is the ultimate power, that he was angry at the world, describing a troubled upbringing. But the commissioner pointed out many people have poor social histories, but don't go on to do what he did.
He didn't show any emotion, no empathy, no insight. He tried to give an explanation to justify why he did what he did, and that was deeply, deeply disturbing.
Bernardo, now 60 years old, stared straight ahead as 6 heart-wrenching victim impact statements were read. Kristen French's mother spoke of being re-traumatized every time a parole hearing comes up. Each day I'm not able to hug her, kiss her, tell her how proud I am of her and how very much I love her. For a mother, that is agony for which there are no words, she said. This via glitchy remote connection. She was unable to make the last-minute trip after the board reversed a controversial move to ban families from attending in person. Leslie Mahaffey's brother Ryan also spoke of losing his sister when he was just 7 years old. He didn't just steal my sister, mentor, and best friend, but through grief, my mother and father too, he said. Mahaffey's mother delivered a powerful statement in person. She was at one point overwhelmed, though, and longtime family lawyer Tim Danson read part of her statement. It said, having murdered my daughter and violated her with unspeakable sadistic brutality, my duty, my responsibility, and that of my family is to protect Leslie's memory, saying she needed justice for her daughter. And justice, the victims insisted, is that Bernardo spend the rest of his life behind bars. And it took just 30 minutes of deliberations for the parole board to conclude the risk of releasing Bernardo was just too high. Omar.
Geneviève, thank you. Bail has been granted to one of 2 Americans accused in the brutal double murders of a Canadian couple on the Caribbean island of Dominica. Bail for American millionaire Jonathan Lehrer was set for approximately $370,000 U.S. Lehrer and his co-accused, Robert Snyder Jr., were arrested last December, days after the bodies of Canadian philanthropist Daniel Langlois and Dominique Marchand were found in a burnt-out car. Coming up, hope for a BC teen with avian flu.
They have made some progress in the last few days.
Looking for clues into the first human infection in Canada. Plus, the eye-popping video of a car taking flight.
Tomorrow, a 10-year battle.
This is my little boy.
He has to come back.
To save a son the world believes is a terrorist.
Can I not even just see my mom's picture?
An investigation that spans 3 continents.
Does anyone speak English?
And takes us deep into ISIS territory. The front line of a ticking time bomb.
Look how close that came.
W5 investigates tomorrow on CTV National News and ctvnews.ca.
New signs of optimism for a BC teen who remains in critical condition after contracting Canada's first ever human case of avian flu. How the teen got it, though, remains a mystery. Here's CTV's BC Bureau Chief Andrew Johnson.
After 2.5 weeks in BC Children's Hospital, the young person with H5N1 avian flu, Canada's first ever case, is stable, but still very sick.
Our thoughts remain with them and their family, and we remain hopeful as they have made some progress in the last few days that they will recover from this very severe infection.
Health officials still don't know how the teenager was exposed to the virus. They've tested and monitored dozens of people and animals the teen encountered, and all have come back negative.
One of the reasons we did this so detailed investigation was to ensure that there was no evidence, and I can say that again, there is no evidence of transmission from this young person and no evidence of any other cases right now in British Columbia.
Testing has shown the teen's illness appears to be linked to wild birds, specifically geese, and not tied directly to poultry farms being devastated in BC's Fraser Valley. Right now, there are outbreaks on 50 BC farms where thousands of birds are being euthanized, the facilities quarantined, then deep cleaned. Since 2022 and the appearance of the highly pathogenic strain in Canada, close to 13 million birds have been destroyed.
Industry has good biosecurity practices. I think the challenges with this is there's such a higher viral load in the wildlife population that it's overwhelming those biosecurity protocols.
BC is declaring the investigation into how the teen was exposed to bird flu closed. But infectious disease experts here will continue to study whether the virus is changing, could start to infect humans more easily, and even the potential it could lead to a new pandemic. Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Vancouver.
And as we go to break, a high-flying and jaw-dropping crash that was caught on camera in North Carolina. The dramatic footage captured the moment a car went airborne and slammed into a jewelry store. The video also shows a person running from the scene. Police say the white Acura was called in as a suspicious before the crash. The building was empty, and there were no reports of any injuries. Still ahead, the high-stakes feud between two hip-hop heavyweights goes from the stage to the courtroom. The feud between Canadian hip-hop star Drake and Kendrick Lamar is heating up and now includes a record label and a streaming service. CTV's Alison Bamford on the allegations.
Untouchable, they got the data wrong. This is the moment I know they've been praying on.
Just hours after announcing his tour, Drake dropped another bombshell. The beginnings of a potential legal fight against the company that oversees his record label. The crux of the matter.
Say, Drake, I hear you like I'm young. You better not ever go to Cell Block 1.
Kendrick Lamar's diss track against the Toronto rapper, now a Grammy-nominated hit.
Hey, Kendrick just opened his mouth. Someone go hand him a Grammy right now.
The hip-hop stars have traded harsh lyrics all year amid their ongoing, highly public feud. But Lamar's Not Like Us debuted at #1 on the Hot 100 Billboard when it was released in May and has nearly 900 million streams on Spotify.
What Drake is saying is that he has suffered because Universal owns the rights to his sound recordings, as they own the rights to Kendrick Lamar's. And he's saying they're favoring this artist versus me.
Drake alleges Universal Music Group manipulated streaming services to boost the song's popularity by launching a campaign to saturate airwaves with the song and used bots and pay-to-play agreements, also claiming UMG offered special licensing rates to Spotify for the song.
It's sort of the digital age claim of payola.
In a second legal action filed today, Drake accuses UMG of defamation for releasing the song that accuses him of being a pedophile. None of these allegations have been proven in court. Universal Music Group responded to the initial allegations, calling them offensive and untrue, and Spotify declined immediate comment. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
And Toronto police have busted the person they believe is responsible for selling fake tickets to Taylor Swift's Toronto shows. Denise Tizor from Burlington, Ontario was arrested and charged with fraud for cheating dozens of fans, making nearly $70,000 off allegedly orchestrating the scheme.
It's alleged that she was on social media platforms such as Facebook Marketplace, using an alias, Denise Blackhawk, and offering tickets for the Taylor Swift concert in Toronto.
One victim who trusted Tizor and knew her for 10 years feels a sense of vindication.
To actually see it now and hoping that this is the start of something big, it just feels really good. Feels really good.
Police believe there are more victims. Still ahead.
See how I do my makeup for work? Very demure, very mindful.
Redefining the word of the year. Dictionary.com has chosen its word of the year, a word that dropped in a viral video and has spread across the pop culture lexicon. CTV's Kathy Lee has more on the modernized meaning.
See how I do my makeup for work? Very demure, very mindful.
This TikTok video has racked up almost 55 million views since August. Beauty influencer Jules LeBron using the word demure to describe a refined and sophisticated appearance or behavior in public versus its traditional meaning of someone reserved, quiet, or modest.
A lot of you girls go to the interview looking like Marge Simpson and go to the job looking like Patty and Selma. Not demure.
I think what the Jules LeBron video speaks to is that similar kind of vibing along, right? Where we want to join in with that feeling that Jules LeBron is giving us, right? Things become viral because we identify with them.
And not just viral, beating out the words brat and brain rot. Demure is Dictionary.com's 2024 word of the year. It's been searched 200 times more on the website after the video took off, influencing celebrities like RuPaul.
See how I'm reading this book? Very demure.
This is an example of just how significant social media in general and TikTok specifically have become in kind of identifying, surfacing new trends.
And those trends also finding their way into branding, from Kim Kardashian to J-Lo. Demure. Both have capitalized demure in their product marketing.
Businesses can use this information, this insight, to drive the products that they create, how they market them to their audiences, indeed how they even choose their audiences in the first place. So having that knowledge of your community, of your market, is golden to businesses.
Runner-up brat was another word that has taken on new meaning this year, people using it to describe a confident and independent attitude. It was named Cullen's Dictionary's Word of 2024. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Calgary.
And that's a snapshot of this Tuesday for all of us at CTV National News. Thank you for watching. Good night, and see you tomorrow.
CTV National News, Canada's #1 newscast.